So, in my previous classes, we have seen about the changes in the first week as well as changes in the second week. So, can anyone say what are the changes we have seen in the first week of development? What are the changes we have seen in the first week of development? Anyone? So, like 133 people are present in today's class. Can anyone say what are the changes we have seen in the first week of development? I think I'm audible for everyone. No, I don't want these messages. I want people to speak so that I can interact with people. People are keeping messages. Yes, someone is speaking.
The zygote is turned into morula and blastocyst has been implanted.
Okay, good. Like first thing is fertilization occurs. So after fertilization, we'll see the cleavage division. Like can anyone explain this cleavage division? Cleavage division already I have shown you people with the nice diagrams. 2 cell stage, 4 cell stage.
Unequal division of
Right. First thing is during cleavage division, we see 2 cells. One is a bigger cell and another is a smaller cell. So first which cell divides?
bigger cell.
The larger one divides into 2. And next, in the process, the smaller one divides into 2. Then we see a 4 cell stage. After that, 8 cell stage and 16 cell stage. When this zygote is at a 16 cell stage, then what it is called?
Morula.
Okay. Now, when you see the morula has an inner cell mass as well as outer cell mass. Outer cell mass. Now, next, in the process of development, what happens? What is the fate of this morula? It develops into
Blastocyst.
blastocyst. So, how this blastocyst is formed?
Entry of uterine fluid.
Emma?
Entry of uterine fluid into the morula, which creates a cavity called as blastocyst.
Extracellular fluid, which is there in the uterine cavity, will migrate into this blastocyst, into this morula. So the intercellular spaces will be filled with this extracellular fluid, so that the inner cell mass will be pushed to a side. The inner cell mass will be pushed to a side, and next the outer cell mass will be created. Here in this diagram you can see that the intercellular spaces are filled with this fluid, and the inner cell mass is pushed to a side, and next a cavity is formed over here. The cavity is called as blastocoele. And the inner cell mass is also called as embryoblast, whereas the outer cell mass is called as trophoblast. Now, what is the fate of this trophoblast? What is the fate of this trophoblast?
Forms the nutritive layer.
First, before saying the fate of this trophoblast is divided in and given names according to the areas where it is situated. The trophoblast cells which are seen near the embryoblast end are called as
Polar
polar trophoblast, and the remaining ones are called as neural trophoblast. How many cells are there at this stage?
108.
107 cells. 107 cells. Out of these 107 cells, embryoblast is formed by 8 cells. 30 cells forms the polar trophoblast, and remaining 69 cells forms the neural trophoblast. And this blastocyst is seen on the 5th or 7th day of this fertilization. Next, already you are aware of this implantations and everything. All these things already are completed in my previous class. Like at the end of the first week or during this first week of development, we see all these things like cleavage or division of the zygote, and it is converted into morula, it is converted into this blastocyst. Trophoblast cells will be differentiated, embryoblast cells will be differentiated, the blastocyst will be formed, and implantation also takes place. So all these things we will see during the first week of development. Next, during second week of development, what are the changes we see? In the second week of in the trophoblast, it differentiates into two layers: an inner cytotrophoblast layer and outer syncytiotrophoblastic layer. So in the outer syncytiotrophoblasts, small air-filled spaces will appear. They are called as lacunae. And these small lacunar spaces unite to form bigger spaces. They form the small lacunar spaces unite to form bigger lacunar spaces, and these lacunar spaces they invade the decidua, they go upwards towards the decidua. Screen over shoulder. So these lacunar spaces, they grow towards the decidua. Here in this diagram, you can see the cytotrophoblast, syncytiotrophoblastic, and the lacunar spaces which are seen over here, and they are united to some bigger lacunar spaces. And these lacunar spaces, they go towards the decidua. They invade the decidua. And the maternal blood vessels will be eroded once these lacunar spaces invade the decidua. And the endothelium of these blood vessels will be eroded, and the maternal blood will be poured into these lacunar spaces. And hence, this uteroplacental circulation starts. These lacunar spaces are seen throughout around this developing fetus or embryo. Now, formation of this chorionic villi. Mainly, there are 3 chorionic villi: primary villus, secondary villus, and tertiary villus. What is a primary villus? Here already I have focused the diagram. You can see that. By seeing that, you can clearly say what is a primary villus. Primary villus consists of syncytial trophoblast and a central core of this cytotrophoblastic cells. It is seen on the 13th or 14th day of development. Next, secondary villus. What is secondary villus? Into the central core of the cytotrophoblast, the underlying this extraembryonic mesoderm invades, and then it is converted into secondary villus. It is seen on the 3rd week of development. So when you take a cut section of this secondary villus, you will see central core of this extraembryonic mesoderm surrounded by cytotrophoblast cells and syncytial trophoblast. Now coming to the tertiary villus. How tertiary villus is formed? Tertiary villus is seen in the end of the 3rd week of development. By this time, the tertiary villus is completely developed. When you take a cut section of this tertiary villus, it's centrally in this extraembryonic mesoderm, you will see. So am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, not audible.
So now is it audible?
Yes, sir.
So what are the embryoblast changes we see? Trophoblast changes already we discussed. Now embryoblastic changes, what are the embryoblastic changes we see?
Cell layers are developed.
Okay, before the basic thing. Embryoblast is inner cell mass. How many cells forms this inner cell mass?
8.
Eight, good. So this embryoblast changes. Like on the 8th day of development, mainly this embryoblast differentiates into 2 layers. What are those basic 2 layers? They are ectoderm and endoderm. Ectoderm and endoderm. Like endoderm, it is also called as hypoblast, the first germ layer to develop. Whereas the second germ layer to develop is the ectoderm, which is also called as epiblast. Like endodermal cells, they are columnar in nature. Now, at this stage, the developing embryo is also called as bilaminar germ disk. At this stage, the developing embryo is also called as bilaminar germ disk. And in the further process of development, a gap appears between the ectoderm and endoderm. And this gap here in the diagram, you can clearly see between the ectoderm and endoderm, a gap appeared. And this gap is converted into a cavity, which is called as amniotic cavity. And it will be filled with the fluid called amniotic fluid. When you observe this, it has a roof as well as a floor. Roof is formed by the amniotic cells derived from the trophoblast, amniotic genic cells derived from the trophoblast, whereas the floor is formed by this ectoderm. And here, flattened cells arise from the endoderm and spread inside this blastocyst. And this membrane is called as Hausner's membrane. Like that, the cavity is formed over here, and it is called as primary yolk sac. And the cells of the trophoblast gives rise to a mass of cells called extraembryonic mesoderm. Further in the stage of development, this extraembryonic mesoderm, we see extraembryonic coelom. And after appearance of this extraembryonic coelom, further in the process of development, it's this extraembryonic mesoderm splits into 2 layers: an outer parietal layer and an inner visceral layer. The outer parietal layer or somatopleuric is also called as somatopleuric extraembryonic mesoderm, whereas the inner layer is called as visceral or splanchnopluric mesoderm. At this stage of development, we mainly see 2 things. One is chorion and another is amnion. Chorion is nothing but the outer trophoblast cells with the parietal or somatopleuric extraembryonic mesoderm. Here in the diagram, you can see that. It is called as chorion, whereas amnion is the wall of the amniotic cavity plus splanchnopluric extraembryonic mesoderm. It's called as amnion. So I think I have stopped at that stage after saying about the chorion as well as amnion. Now, coming to the 3rd week of development. In the 3rd week of development, this bilaminar disc is converted into trilaminar disc. Until now, we have seen the bilaminar disc, so that is this ectoderm and endoderm are formed, and a gap appears between the ectoderm and the endoderm, and it forms this amniotic cavity, and it is filled with fluid called amniotic fluid. Like that, Hausner's membrane develops. Later, this extraembryonic mesoderm develops, and a cavity appears in that called as extraembryonic coelom, and outer parietal layer and inner visceral layer develops. Next, 2 layers called the chorion and amnion develops. So all these things we have seen in the 2nd week of development. Now, coming to the 3rd week of development. In the 3rd week of development, what happens is an extra germ layer appears. That is this mesoderm. So until now, in the 2nd week, we have seen ectoderm and endoderm development. Now, this bilaminar germ disk will be converted into a trilaminar germ disk. This takes place by formation of intraembryonic secondary mesoderm. which appears between the ectoderm and endoderm cells. Here, this is the embryonic disc where we are seeing this ectoderm and endoderm. So, this the trilaminar germ disc will be formed like this takes place by formation of embryonic secondary mesoderm, which appears between the ectoderm and endoderm. Here we see changes in the germ disc, whereas changes in the trophoblast also. Like changes in the germ disc. We'll see first changes in the germ disc. Like first, this germ disc, we are seeing two layers, but in the third week, a third layer is appearing between the two layers. What are the two layers first formed? What are the two layers first formed in the second week?
Ectoderm and
Ectoderm, endoderm. So, what is the third layer formed in the third week? Mesoderm. So, here in the third week, this bilaminar germ disc will be converted into trilaminar germ disc. And we will see changes in this germ disc as well as the changes in the trophoblast also. First, we are seeing the changes in the germ disc in the third week of development. Like the outline of this flattened germ disc, this is circular first, and then rapidly it will be changing into an oval shape. And later on the 18th day of development, this oval-shaped germ disc will be converted into pear-shaped. See in these diagrams, you can see the changes like oval shape as well as pear shape. Next, on the 18th day of development, it will be transformed into a pear-shaped germ disc, where it will be having a broader cephalic end. The upper end in this diagram here, you can see the broader end, where I'm focusing the cursor, the broader up end are the cephalic end, and a narrower end and a caudal end. This caudal end to the caudal end of the narrower end, the connecting stalk is attached to this caudal end. The connecting stalk is attached. So, first what happens is the germ disc, the outline of the flattened germ disc is circular first, and rapidly it will be converted into an oval disc. And further in the process of development, on the 18th day of development, this oval-shaped germ disc will be converted into a pear-shaped germ disc, where it has a broader end and a narrower end. The broader end is called as the cephalic end, this upper end, and the narrower end is called as the caudal end. The connecting stalk is attached to this lower, narrower end or the caudal end. Now, the ectodermal layer of this disc differentiates into three functional zones: surface ectoderm, neural plate, and pluripotent cells. Again, I'm repeating, the ectodermal layer of this disc differentiates into three functional zones: surface ectoderm, neural plate, and pluripotent cells. We'll see from each thing what it develops. Like first one, surface ectoderm. The cells occupy the cephalic end and peripheral margins of the disc. Here you can see in this diagram, this upper one, it is a surface ectoderm. The cells occupy the cephalic end and the peripheral margins of the disc, from which the epidermis and skin develops. So it is easy to remember, from the surface ectoderm, the epidermis and skin develops after surface ectoderm. Coming to the neural plate. The neuroectodermal cells are situated within the concavity of the surface. This is the neural plate. The neuroectodermal cells are situated within the concavity of surface ectoderm and form a neural plate from which CNS develops. Say simple: surface ectoderm, skin and dermis. Neural plate, CNS develops. Now the third one, pluripotent cells. The cells which are occupying the caudal part of the germ disc, they are pluripotent in nature and undergo rapid differentiation to form this primitive streak. They form this rapid differentiation to form this primitive streak. Now, this primitive streak, it is asked as a short answer. The primitive streak, it is asked as a short answer. We'll see about the primitive streak. There is a cells involved, pluripotent cells. Now, soon after the formation of the procaudal plate, some ectodermal cells lying along the central axis near the tail end of the disc begin to proliferate to form an elevation that bulges into a cavity, amniotic cavity. Like that, this primitive streak is seen on the 15th day of development. This primitive streak is seen on the 15th day of development. And the process of invagination of cells is called as gastrulation. The process of invagination of these cells from the caudal end is called as gastrulation. Now, when you see the primitive streak, right from the cephalic end to the caudal end, we see several things over here. Like the cephalic end, we see a knob-like elevation, which is called as primitive node, which is also called as Hansen's node, which is also called as Hansen's node. This node slightly bulges into a cavity, into the amniotic cavity. This Hansen's node slightly bulges into the amniotic cavity. The center of the node, when you observe, you will see a depression over there. It is called as a pit or primitive pit. And this pit is surrounded by cord of cells. Like that, extended in cephalic direction, the notochord and as well as the precaudal plate and cardiogenic area develops. And it is seen on the 15th day of development. Whereas below this primitive node, we see a group called the primitive group. And below that in the caudal end, we see the cloacal membrane. This is the fate of this germ disc by the end of this third week of development. Like in the central area, we see this primitive streak. On the cranial end of this primitive streak, we see a knob-like elevation called the primitive node or Hansen's node. Near that, we see this node slightly bulges into the amniotic cavity. The center of this Hansen's node has a depression which is called as primitive pit, and the pit is surrounded by cord of cells. Like that, extended in the cephalic direction above this primitive streak, we see the notochord, precaudal plate, as well as the cardiogenic area. From this cardiogenic area, further the CVS develops. Like that, in the caudal direction below the primitive streak, we see this cloacal membrane. You see the cloacal membrane. Like already I said, the cells seen beyond the precaudal plate form this cardiogenic area, from which future this CVS develops. So these are the changes we see in the third week of development. So this is about the development which we see in the third week of development. Fate of the fetus in the third week of development. And next thing, another thing I would like to ask, like, see, I got many messages. Yes, I have completed today's class. First thing, any doubts regarding today's class? Any doubts regarding today's class? Am I audible for everyone? Any doubts regarding today's class?
No, sir.
Okay, next thing, like your internal exam. See, many people kept messages to me saying that I couldn't upload it early, so sorry for that. I accept this thing, I accept my this thing, sir. And some messages are saying that, sir, I have uploaded it, but it is not clear. So again, I send it another file. Please accept this. Like that, there are a lot of messages. Why this confusion is there already clearly before starting the exam only we have given you instructions saying that we need only one folder, a PDF folder, and the name of the folder will be like first your roll number and second your name must be there and everything. All the instructions are clearly given. And even 1 week prior to your internal exams also I kept an exam so that you will be aware of that how to upload these papers and everything. For that reason only I kept an exam. But still, why this confusion occurred? Why people are repeatedly sending me mails? Why? What is the reason? Some people are saying, sir, slow internet. Some people are saying, sir, blurring occurred while scanning. Why all these things are happening when I clearly instructed? See, it will create a lot of confusion for the computer operator. Already roughly around 250 or something mails we have received. Like your previous exam also, when we kept this part completion exam, then also we received around, you people are 150 people are there and roughly around 200 messages we received. And now also the same thing is happening. If you people are sending like this, what happens is confusion will be created. Which folder to be taken and which folder to be deleted, it will be difficult for us. Like we have to spend a lot of time to see each and everything in that folder and whether to keep it or delete it. Because of that, what happens is it will hamper our correcting process and it will delay giving you the result. So next time, when we are keeping an exam, don't create this confusion. Rather, you people can clearly scan it. Already I am giving you grace period also. We have given you 1 hour of grace period. Your exam will be completed by 12 o'clock and I said by 1 o'clock send the answers. But still this confusion has arisen and you people have sent lot of mails. And this answer sheets we have to sort out now and we have to correct them and see the performance of you people, how it is. We'll see. And another thing, like I said I'll share these PowerPoints, but unfortunately I forgot about that and your CR is also reminding me. But due to some other works in the department, I couldn't share those PowerPoints. Like this time, I'll share. Ask your CR to keep a message like what classes he wants these PowerPoints. I'll share those particular classes. So, any doubts regarding today's class? Any doubts?
No, sir.